So we're mostly done with the rain, just showers on the south coast, but we have very strong winds from the west over Juan de Fuca and from the northwest down Georgia Strait, 70 gusting to 90 kilometers an hour, a direction that we haven't seen very much of this fall. So probably more power outages on its way. The freezing levels remain high over the interior. Rain is going to shift to snow for places like the Coquihalla Summit. Up to 20 centimeters are possible, and a lot of wind, so very treacherous driving conditions and very poor visibility is likely. And the wind are also going to affect the interior. We just had a very strong thunderstorm right over Kelowna in the last half hour. Hail as well, and those conditions are going to affect the interior here for the next few hours into the evening. Luckily, there will be a little bit of calmer weather for a couple days before we get back into an active stretch thereafter. Thanks, that's all from me.
Thanks very much. We'll pass it along to Dave Campbell with the River Forecast Center. Dave, please go ahead.
Thank you. And I'll just provide a brief update on river conditions around the province. Really following along from the weather side of things. On the rivers, not surprisingly, with the significant rainfall that we've seen in historic, as Armel has described, we're seeing similarly historic and unprecedented stream flow in rivers in a number of areas in the southwest part of BC, including around the Tulameen and Smilkameen rivers, up through the Coldwater and Nicola River systems, as well as local tributaries along areas of the Fraser Valley and on southern Vancouver Island. And these are certainly the areas where we've seen the heaviest stream flow responses, both from the heavy rain, but also from warm temperatures and fairly rapid snowmelt of mid-elevation snowpacks that were building up over the last few weeks. We have a number of flood warnings in effect, and particularly those areas that I just mentioned. In terms of conditions going forward, we're starting to see, as the system has passed, as Armel described, that some of the rivers, particularly in the higher headwater areas, are starting to reach their peak levels. And we're expecting to see that trend to continue as we move downstream throughout the afternoon and evening as the highest flows pass. As we still have quite high flows, it's important to note that the situation is still, or the flows are still very dynamic, very powerful, and extremely hazardous. And so certainly continuing to use caution. And I think it will really be until we've got a significant drop in the river levels before we start to see that hazard subside. In terms of updates, we're continuing to push the updates and advisories and flood warnings onto the River Forecast Center website, and that's the best source for up-to-date information, gov.bc.ca/river forecast. And that's the end of my update. I'll pass it back. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next operational update comes from Janelle State, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure.
Good evening. So I'll start with an update here in the Lower Mainland Fraser Valley area. We've had an opportunity to have helicopter flights on a number of our corridors. On the Highway 7 corridor, we have 4 different locations where we do have debris flows and washouts. As Mr. Farnworth mentioned, one of the sites near Seabird Island, while we haven't actually been in a place where we can actually start moving any of the materials yet, we have been able to work to get some of those folks rescued from that area, which is excellent, and that work is ongoing. The slide that was mentioned, or the rock the debris material that came through and around the Hague area, we do have our maintenance contractors on scene and a ton of heavy equipment at the east end of the site near Hague. Right now, we do have the all clear from our geotechnical engineers to start working. However, we are waiting on BC Hydro to de-energize some large high voltage lines there. So once that work is done, we're assessing that we'll be able to spend a number of hours. We have lights deployed and start clearing a pathway through to enable the vehicles that are trapped in that section of the highway to be able to clear themselves towards Hope. As I move on the Highway 1 corridor, Highway 1 remains closed between Hope and Topcombe. And actually, in the next few minutes, we will have a traffic advisory going out that is going to be shutting down Highway 1 at 7 o'clock this evening between Number 3 Road and Highway 11. As Dave mentioned, we have some continued river increasing on the Sumas, And so we want to ensure that highway is closed. So this few hours of notice gives folks an opportunity to start clearing through that area at 7 p.m. At 7 p.m. On Highway 1 on the Fraser Canyon, to assess that site. And in the air, signs of numerous washouts and areas of erosion. So some significant work to be done on that stretch of the corridor. On Highway 5, same thing. Highway 1 at Mount Sicker, north of the Duncan area, remains closed due to heavy volumes of water coming across the highway there. So continuing to monitor that and waiting for the water to recede in that area to be able to undertake an assessment. Got heavy congestion along that area of Highway 1. On Highway 14, we've been able to reopen the stretch of highway at Impala Road, which is east of Souk, to single lane alternating traffic. So there is some significant congestion there, but we are able to get folks through along that portion of the corridor. And Highway 4 on Kennedy Lake through our construction site has had an extended closure, looking at reopening hopefully later this evening. With the heavy rains that we've seen, it's creating some instability in the rock face along the corridor. So having to take a look at that and ultimately ensuring that it's safe prior to reopening that stretch of the corridor to single lane alternating traffic. And that's it for the South Coast region.
Thank you very much. Next, we go to Paula Cousins, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, Interior Region.
Good afternoon. The Highway 5 Coquihalla remains closed between Merritt and Hope. The corridor has received over 230 millimeters of rain since Saturday evening. As Janelle mentioned, damage assessments are ongoing. And at this time, we do not have an estimated time of reopening for the corridor. Highway 1 is closed south of Spence's Bridge due to debris flows and washouts south of Lytton in the Tank Hill area. Our crews are monitoring and assessing these conditions, and there is also no estimated time of opening for Highway 1. Highway 8 is closed between Merritt and Spence's Bridge due to flooding and washouts. Staff are on scene doing everything that we can to monitor and assess, but there is significant water and high water levels at this time. Along Highway 99, we've had some mudslides west of Lillooet, so our contractor did respond immediately and managed to get a lane open to clear the traffic that was trapped between two slides. And at this time, there's still no estimated time of opening, but assessments are ongoing at that site. Highway 12 is closed south of Lillooet, between Lillooet and Lytton, due to a debris flow. Crews are on scene and assessments are underway. And Highway 3 at Princeton remains closed due to flooding. Once water recedes at that location, we'll be doing an assessment. In the last 45 minutes, we've received word that there has been some mud on the road on the Trans-Canada near the Enchanted Forest, which is west of Revelstoke. Crews are on site assessing at this time. The highway remains open, but please continue to monitor Drive BC as it could close with limited notice. And just wanted to, again, remind motorists to avoid travel unless absolutely necessary until the storm subsides and conditions stabilize. And we want to encourage motorists who must travel to watch for pooling water, have a full tank of gas, their emergency kit with them, including food and water, drive with lights on, and continue to monitor overhead signs and Drive BC. We're also expecting some winter weather conditions to follow this storm through the southern interior. So it's critical that all motorists do their part, ensure they have winter tires, slow down and drive to conditions if they must travel to help us keep the remaining corridors open. Our teams continue to be full out assessing damage and deploying materials and equipment to begin responding to these incidents as soon as it's safe to do so.